The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back, loving baseball when we were 12 and innocent. And is my want, I come up with the most interesting people on the face of the planet to be my guest on this. Everybody likes to look back on memories, and I think age 12 was a terrific year. It's where passion meets intellect. And it just so happened that the year 1961 is the year that passion met intellect with Marty Appel, and he's here to tell you about it. How are you, Marty?
Good, Ralph. Always enjoy talking to you. Thank you.
That makes me happy because if it ain't fun, it shouldn't be getting done, and it has been with us over the years. First thing that hits me is, speaking of over the years in our conversations, how's Fritz doing?
Well, like a lot of people who were close to him, I've really lost touch since he dropped off social media, and his daughter indicates that there's stages of dementia that he's dealing with. So, like a lot of people who felt close to him, I feel deprived not being able to continue to keep in touch.
Absolutely. He's a terrific guy, and speaking of terrific pitchers that recently passed away, Mark Littell died this past week, and for you Yankee fans, he was the one who gave up the home run to Chris Chambliss, but more than that, he was an all-around guy and a big asset to the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. He wrote the forward on my book. Peter Golenbach co-wrote the forward, or wrote a forward, and he did too. I'm going to miss him as a friend, as you do Fritz. I got to talk to Fritz along with you on one of the best podcasts I ever recorded. You talked about you were in the dugout and informing him of a certain record. Would you repeat that?
Was that the lowest earned run average?
Yes, it was. Yankee Stadium history. A lot of pitchers. Low, and you told him about it. And that's pretty cool, because we're all Walter Middies in some ways. And I think in 1961, you were kind of a Walter Mitty guy. You were Bobby Richardson's fan club. Did you start it, or you were?
No, I joined it. It's Sport Magazine in those days, which was must-read, used to have a little column where they'd give you the address of fan clubs.
Wow.
So Bobby Richardson was my favorite player, and I'm reading Sport Magazine, and there's the address for a Bobby Richardson fan club. So I joined, and that was 1959. I mean, that was a long time ago and pretty early in his career. He hit .301 that year, and he paid attention to who was in this fan club. So we would get periodic letters from the fan club, and they were precious to me. And then in 1961, the fan club held a contest as to what game Bobby would get his 100th hit. And so I was 12, and I was like, well, this is no problem for me. They play 162 games. He'll get it in the 81st game. And he did, and I won.
Wow.
So I got an autographed baseball.
As a 12-year-old, your mind was working in baseball, in the ways of baseball. You were able to disseminate, divide by 2. That's pretty good for a 12-year-old. And am I right about it? Passion meets intellect at that age.
It's it's all we have on our minds when we're 12. We're not quite discovering girls yet. That's a few months away.
Right.
And we're
getting
not
ready for the
responsible.
bar mitzvah.
Not paying any bills. Life is good.
Studying for the bar mitzvah?
Yeah, not hard. And there was, if you're blessed enough to have your 2 parents in your life, they're kind of taking care of all the important things. So baseball was it. And
yes,
even now at 74, I can't begin to imagine that I'm half the fan that I was when I was 12.
Wow. I picked a great number for that, and people are responding. I think this is going to be my second book, the results of these interviews. What was your first game like? Who took you?
Well, that's an interesting question because, unlike so many people that I meet these days, they know all the details about their first game. What was the box score and who pitched and who homered. I don't have any of those memories. I was 7. My dad took me to Ebbets Field. I remember where we sat, which was behind the screen, behind home plate. I remember being amused by Roy Campanella because he was roly-poly and he was right in front of us. But I have no recollection of the date, the opponent, anything. I just have a vision in my head of looking out onto the field from behind the screen. And I think I even complained that we were behind the screen. But we only lived about 12 blocks from Ebbets Field, so that was my one and only time there.
Wow. Marty, what's disappointed you about, I entitled this thing When We Were 12 and Innocent. Now that you're not innocent anymore, none of us really are beyond a certain point. What do you look back and shake your head that the game has become, and what do you miss about it? How are you disappointed, and what about the game keeps you going?
I think the fact that it's been part of my life since I was 7 makes it hard to discard. It's not critical that I know every player and know every manager and general manager and owner like we all used to.
Right.
But it's just,
you
part
especially.
of... Right. And it's just part of the rhythm of my blood flowing through my veins that I have to keep up at some level. I do miss going to the game with friends and being able to sit in the stands and talk baseball. And today, it's blasts at the sensory systems. It's too hard to have conversations because of the music, the PA system, the distractions. And I say all of this knowing I'm sounding like an old fogey and appreciative of the fact that the game has to regenerate and pull in younger fans. So bless them at MLB for doing what needs to be done. When I worked in the game, our attendance was a third or a quarter of what it is today. The revenues were probably even less. So they're doing something right. They're just not really connecting with baby boomers like me.
Are they connecting with the young fans and having them build memories? Because the All-Star game is played at night. The World Series is at night. When does a young fan, notwithstanding the cost of going to a game and the reason the revenues have gone up, the advertising has gone up and the price of tickets, are they truly connecting with enough fans that when those kids reach their middle years and our older years, they're going to have the memories?
The answer is a mixed bag because, first of all, I don't like to answer it with an East Coast prejudice. They're not playing too late at night on the West Coast. That's acceptable.
That's true.
Yeah, so if I say, oh, yeah, I hate the night games, well, that's an East Coast prejudice in me, so forget about that.
Okay.
My son is 42. He's of a generation that didn't live and die off baseball cards. That's how we came to know the players. He couldn't name 15 Seattle Mariners, and he certainly couldn't recognize 1,000 major league players. But he enjoys the game. Fantasy sports sort of captured his attention some years ago, and he knows who's on his fantasy team.
Right.
So, whatever works fine.
Yeah,
I don't think it'll never be like it was when there were 400 players and only 50 years of history to catch up with. It is what it is today. It's too much to expect people to absorb. But if you enjoy the product on the field and you get the excitement of a close game in the last 3 innings, baseball's done its job.
Good point. Very good point. Marty, 1961, let me take you back. Talk about Roger Maris. You wanted to do that anyway, and it's serendipity that the subject works out to the year that you were 12.
That works out, yes. And how serendipitous is it that it's been 61 years since Maris hit 61 in 61? That's kind of remarkable.
Yes.
And all the more reason to say Aaron Judge is the right guy at the right time. And I'm all for him, and I hope I get to see him break the American League and the New York Yankee record and hit his 62nd.
Right, and that is arguably the Major League record, but that's for another time, another era. The eras have changed, and it's very difficult to compare players from one generation to another for not only the Jackie Robinson reason, but diet, exercise, extracurricular activities, it all, extracurricular input, let's put it that way, it makes it impossible. That's what I miss about being a kid. We were able to compare generation to generation. What would Roger Maris do in today's game?
Well, he was a great player with one of the most picturesque swings you could ever find in baseball history. He was just a beautiful player to watch. It's odd that it didn't carry on for more than a couple of years, him playing at that elite level. But whatever it is, I mean, when you were talking about things that change, the money has changed a lot. And when I say that, I mean players today can work out all off-season and report to spring training as these incredible muscular figures, whereas before free agency, they all had jobs in the winter, stocking shelves at department stores and selling insurance and pumping gas. And
hey, you mentioned the Dodgers, and growing up in Brooklyn, in the off-season one year, Carl Furillo was working at a grocery store 2 blocks from my house.
Wow.
We go in, there's Carl Furillo in an apron. Right?
Yeah.
Today's
guys have personal gyms built into their homes and conscientiously work out all winter, so that if you watch a game on TV from the 1960s or 70s, they're all normal-looking people with, I weigh 162. They sort of my size. And,
right.
Today I remember I go into the clubhouses fairly regularly on one piece of business or other, but I remember walking in one day and Johnny Damon was walking out, and we never thought of Johnny Damon as one of these superhuman superheroes. I was like, oh my God, it's Johnny Damon. He's like twice my size. And that's just an example of these guys are extraordinary athletes, and you don't find too many Altuves out there anymore.
Yeah, and then there's the Latin American influence, and people from all countries, China, Japan. That has helped the talent level quite a bit.
Absolutely. I mean, these guys are by and large much better overall athletes, all-around athletes, than the guys we grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen pictures of Ralph Kiner in the Pirates clubhouse with his shirt off, and Joe DiMaggio the same. And where's the musculature? It's not there. They're ordinary-looking people.
Right, and they discouraged, with Ted Kluszewski notwithstanding, they discouraged weights in those days. So players had longer muscles, no comparison athletic-wise, generation to generation. Who in your, as everybody knows, you worked for the Yankees for many, many years. Bobby Richardson notwithstanding, who were you close to, really close to?
Well, it sounds fantastic and maybe invented, but Mickey Mantle is the answer, because my first job with the Yankees was answering Mickey Mantle's fan mail. That's why I got hired in the summer of '68, which was his last season. And so every day I would make sure to have 4 or 5 letters that I need to go over with him personally, even if I was exaggerating the need.
Right.
So I spent all that time with Mick, and we formed a friendship out of it, different though we were, and we kept in touch for the remainder of his life. So when I can say that Mickey Mantle knew my name, who could have ever imagined that? That's genuine and sincere, and I still look back on it as, how could this have happened? But it all came from writing a letter to the Yankees PR director and looking for a summer job, and that's what it led to.
Talk about serendipity. Bobby Richardson counseled, and I don't know what they call it when Christians get counseling from a human being. I think Bobby is a pastor or some sort of reverend, and he counseled and helped Mickey get through his passage.
Yeah, he's not ordained, but he certainly knows the Bible in and out and all the accompanying blessings and prayers that go with it. So not only Mickey, but a number of his teammates have turned to Bobby later in life, and Bobby's very generous with his time and has flown at his own expense to officiate at funerals for his teammates. So a very special guy then and still now in my life.
Yeah. What do we know? Basically everything about Bobby. It's all good, and a loving human being. I know I talked to David Mantle recently on a podcast, and I learned some things about Mickey's sensitivity. What can you tell me that we don't know about Mickey Mantle?
Well, I'll give you this anecdote, and maybe it tells a lot. When I say that we became close, I remember one day in spring training, when he was a spring training instructor, we were in Fort Lauderdale. We were on Oakland Park or Commercial Boulevard, and we walked over a drawbridge. To the left was a complex with a multiplex movie theater, and we went together to see The Last Picture Show, which you may remember with Sybil Shepherd.
I do.
And anyway, we saw...
alluring. She was mildly alluring.
So we saw The Last Picture Show, and we were coming out of which, for those unfamiliar with the movie, it was black and white film, took place in small town Texas in the 40s. And we came out of there, and Mickey had tears in his eyes. And long before Tom Hanks made the line famous, I said, "Are you crying?" There's no crying in baseball. And Mickey wiped his tears, and he said, "That was just like the town I grew up in Oklahoma, that was." And he said, "We even had a village idiot like that one." So he was very touched by that flashback to his childhood, and there's a lot you could read into that.
In 1969, they presented Mickey a plaque, or it retired his number, and it said something, and the plaque said something like he was the best teammate of all of them. He was great with his teammates, wasn't he? Beyond great.
He could have been standoffish or, I'm Mickey Mantle. But when we got a new player, whether he was up from the minors or traded from another team, Mick would walk across the clubhouse, extend his hand for a handshake, and he would say, "Hi, I'm Mick," as if they didn't know. He was, the most famous face in the game.
Right.
And that little gesture was just wonderful. I witnessed it a number of times. And when I say most famous face in the game, one thing people don't often realize is he was baseball's first television star. He reached his stardom in the 50s. Everybody was buying television sets. And 12 times in his first 14 seasons, he was in the World Series on national TV. So I kid and I say he was on the NBC fall lineup just like Bonanza. He was, he was so handsome and muscular and just that aw shucks manner about him. He had it all. And
it came over in a movie that Mickey and Roger made after 1961. Couldn't have been far after, but it was with William Frawley.
Yeah, Safe at Home.
Safe at Home, absolutely.
And it was filmed in Fort Lauderdale Stadium the year that the Yankees moved to Fort Lauderdale and into that ballpark. It was the first activity at that stadium in the weeks before spring training started.
Well, I remember going to that as a kid. I'm only a year older than you, so...
that's pretty old.
That's pretty old, but are we not blessed to have reached these years with our memories intact? And what did Casey say? Some of the people my age are dead.
And he was right.
And you could look it up. Not only was he right, he was prophetic. That's what happens. And, we're going to be the two last standing, Marty. We better get used to it. Mortality sucks. How about that? Just... off the top of my head. Condolences to you and your wife over the loss of her son, by the way.
Thank you. Nice of you to say that.
I was reminded of that. And when an older person just being alive, sometimes, you wake up, I'm alive, it's good. No, it's not that simple. Life gets in the way, and our memories help alleviate the pain of the day-to-day goings-on. Speaking of that, speaking of nothing, I wanted to remind you that you worked for my father's first cousin as an early job before coming to the Yankees. Was it the New York Sets or the New York Apples at that time?
Well, that was after the Yankees, actually. I had moved on from the Yankees, and World Team Tennis had a team at Madison Square Garden, the Apples, and They brought me aboard. It was a short-lived thing because the league folded that very summer, but I had a lot of fun immersing myself in the tennis world for a few months. Billie Jean King was on our team, and to know that great lady was a privilege of a lifetime.
Oh, and Fred Stolle was the coach of that team, if I'm not mistaken.
Great guy. And our star male player was Vitas Gerulaitis, whose name I can still spell without looking it up.
and pronounce.
And Vitas, people thought because of his name he was a foreigner and you had to speak English very slowly to him, which was funny because he was from Long Island and he was as New York as I was, and he was a big baseball fan, so we would talk baseball a lot. And in World Team Tennis, you had to have a lineup going into the evening, men's singles, women's singles, doubles, and mixed doubles. And Vitas would say to me, "You think Sparky Lyle and Dick Tidrow are out there in the Yankee bullpen now trying to guess who we're going to play tonight?" So he sort of got it.
Yeah. Here's another person who died much too young.
Absolutely. But I never would have gotten into Studio 54 without Vitas.
That must be a memory. He was, speaking of Vitas and Mickey, they all were New Yorkers. They weren't, Mickey certainly wasn't a New Yorker, but they lived a New York life. Phil Linz and all those guys. Tell me something about Phil Linz, the harmonica guy.
There were certain guys that you meet that you just say, he's like a regular person. He's not like a baseball player. And my friend Art Shamsky is one of those guys, and Phil Linz is another of those guys. Phil and I went to Yogi Berra's funeral together with Shamsky. We took New Jersey rail system from Penn Station, and we went out to Montclair, and Phil brought his harmonica with him, knowing he wasn't going to play it, but thinking maybe there'd be an appropriate moment for him to just take it out and say, "You think I should play this? You think that would be appropriate?"
Just in case.
Just in case.
It never hurts to be prepared.
Yeah.
Geez, you're a great interview, Marty.
Well, thank you.
Talk about rule changes. You wanted to do that. Is there anything about the upcoming rule changes that you simply don't like? And is there anything about them that you are enamored with?
Well, I kind of surprised myself, and maybe your listeners, on this one. The new rule starting next year is that you have to have 4 infielders at their normal positions, 2 on the left side of second base, 2 on the right side, on the dirt, their cleats in the dirt, just like we've known for 100 years.
Right.
So it's the end of overshifting. And I always thought I was going to like the end of that because that's not the game I grew up with, or you. But it turns out that the more I think about it, the more I say, you know what? Science took us to these overshifts. The analytics showed that you can prevent runs by doing this. Now we're going to tell the teams you can no longer prevent runs. You have to go backwards in time to before the overshifting. And I'm thinking to myself, there's something wrong about that. The genie was out of the bottle. You can prevent runs by overshifting, and now we have to tell them you can't? I don't know. There's a level of that doesn't make sense to me.
Strategize. Would Tony Gwynn have been hurt by the shift or helped, even though they had him pegged? Willie Keeler, you hit them where they're not. And we never got to see the strategy. No team has ever said, we're just going to beat it all year. We're just going to beat the shift and see if that works.
Baseball insiders will tell you that hitters just are reluctant to go against the shift because, quote, this is the swing that got me here.
Right.
But to those people, I say, how about when that same guy fouls off 6 pitches in a row waiting for the right pitch? Are you telling me that that's his natural swing? Or are you telling me he's that good that he could foul off all those pitches on purpose?
And if he's that good that he could foul off the pitches, shouldn't he be able to hit it down the third baseline when they're playing him, overshifting him? But you know what? I miss the strategy of get him on, get him over, get him in. And but like I say, the terrific athleticism makes up for it, because every day you see something literally that you never saw before. Guys are making plays that are incredible. So we know what you were surprised by. What are you delighted by?
The pitch clock. I mean, it's hard to find a baseball fan who doesn't think the games are too long. And there is genuine evidence that the pitch clock will speed up the game. So I'm all for that, even as embarrassing though it is to say it. I was kind of okay with the ghost runner on second base once you got into extra innings, mostly selfishly because I just wanted to go to sleep. I didn't want a 16-inning night game. So that was selfish, but I have to admit I was okay with that. But the pitch clock, I think, will have a genuine effect on the time of game. I think we could see it going down to 2:35 or 2:40 on average.
Okay. Did the Yankees really screw Yogi
when they let him go the second time as manager?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Mr. Steinbrenner acting too impetuously on that one. And he paid a deep price for it because Yogi walked away for like 14 years. And that hurt Mr. Steinbrenner a lot. He didn't just buy the Yankees in 1973. He bought their whole history and the relationship with the players and their legacies as part of that purchase. So it hurt him a lot that Yogi wouldn't come back.
Yeah. While I have you, tell me something about one of my heroes as a kid, Billy Martin, that we might not know.
When I think of Billy, I think of a guy who wore the Yankee uniform like guys in fraternities wear their fraternity jackets. It was like a super cape to him, a superhero cape. He played so much beyond his abilities when he was a Yankee. I don't know if there's a better example in all of baseball as a guy who exceeded his natural talents simply with the buoyancy of wearing a uniform that meant so much to him. So the fact that he let himself get fired 5 times, it's like, how could you do this? But there were little inner demons there that he just couldn't fight. But wearing the Yankee jersey...
And Steinbrenner did have a way of pushing his buttons.
Yeah, he did. So his life, you'd have to say, was a tragedy. His death was not considered untimely or surprising. People kind of knew that was his destiny. But a memorable figure in my life. I was the PR guy when he was first there as a manager.
And did you like him deep down?
Yeah, it was hard not to like him if he treated you well, which he did me. I was never going to go out at night with him and his coaches and pretend I could keep up with them and drink with them and go to all, nightclub after nightclub. That wasn't going to be me. And he was okay. I mean, he didn't disrespect me for that. So our relationship was professional, but never antagonistic. And he had some bad relationships with PR guys and traveling secretaries at some of his other stops. So I was always very cautious about